And welcome to the stormy day. Yesterday was actually the best day I've had out here, mileage-wise, since coming back at Abiquiu. Partially it's feeling the pressure and wanting to get on towards Silver City. You know, lack of water, things like that. And also just that atrocious wind yesterday. Anytime I took a break, I couldn't stop very long because it would just get cold. I did carry a bit more weight water-wise than I needed from the fence, but I kind of wanted a jug like this because they're easier to carry, and looking ahead, I'm afraid I'm going to need to carry more water. Frustrating thing is somebody was actually through here in October, that sunshine person, and apparently left 0 comments as far as the water sources. So down south, it looks like some of the streams may be flowing. They were when I went through there, Diamond Creek, etc. The reroute actually says it's a stream with trout, which is usually a good sign as far as it stays. But in some cases, you're talking like 40-mile stretches where all I have is a couple of maybes. And as you've seen so far out here, the maybes in spring tend to be nose in fall, at least this year. This is especially dry. This was a very wet spring, but it is a very dry fall because the monsoon season apparently never hit out here. So these water sources are worse than expected. Okay, well that's good news. Precipitation arrived and it is coming down as snow. I would much rather have this than rain. Could do without the wind as always. Sun came out for a minute, so I decided to make a run for it, but alas, doesn't look like I'm getting out of the precipitation today. But this is about the best I could ask for. Flurries instead of rain, even if it's going to be windy. I'm starting to feel like a water gypsy here with bottles in every spot. I originally thought it'd be in Winston today. That might have made for good timing, but oh well. I lucked out at Grant, so I'm just happy that I'm not still crossing the plain for 24 miles like yesterday. Instead, I was on autopilot following the damn road when it's actually cross-country time. So from here, I jump up into the hills. I will be hitting the intersection with the Grand Enchantment Trail in under 10 miles. And from there, from what I remember, the trail was pretty good down to Winston. South of there is where things get interesting. One way or another, I'm not anticipating making it into Winston till tomorrow. I have a feeling trying to hitch after dark is not going to go real well considering how remote this is. So I'll probably aim to get in there early-ish tomorrow. And whether I overnight there or push on, I don't know yet. My inclination is to charge up my batteries and go just because of the time pressure, but I'm going to have to look at water sources and everything because it's a bigger pain to just do, 5-10 miles out of town and then camp if it puts me in the middle of a big water source. There was a spring south of Winston that was running when I came through on the Grand Enchantment. It's this kind of underground bathtub thing, and I'm fairly confident in it, but considering how many dry sources I found out here, I'm not getting to anything where I don't at least have enough water to bail out. Good news is I finished my 50-mile swing out to the east, and I'm now headed south, so I've got the big Black Range Traverse up ahead. And the further south I get, there are at least a few creeks that I'm reasonably sure will be flowing down there. And of course, once I get back on the red line, which from here is 130, well, that's not the red line, but once the Gila alternate comes back on and it's the heavier traveled section of trail, that's gonna go a little bit easier. That's basically Silver City though. I did tell Jen to go ahead and send a box to Silver City, assuming I make it that far. My long johns are basically gonna be capeline chaps at that point, and I'm doing a number on my socks, so figure 2 pairs of socks, new pair of long johns, and that should get me through the last 150 miles, which I'm hoping is a victory lap, aka it feels easy after all this. T-Dub, the CDT hiker from last year that came back and did trail magic up in Colorado. I remember him making a comment about he had one section where he didn't see anybody for like 4 days, and that messed with him. I don't think he'd care for this here. Last time I saw a hiker was a section hiker in Malpais, and before that, hell, I think it was Whitney and Swede. Last time I had reception, there were still a couple of gut hook comments from further north of me. Can't tell for sure if they're going north or south, figure south. But if I had to guess, they're probably going to make pretty good time past me here, because the Gila cuts off 100 miles, and you can even take a high country alt, it looks like, and avoid a lot of the water crossings. Yesterday was just such a happy, satisfying day. The terrain was not that great. I'm not in a hurry to go back through that section ever, but being able to make 24, 25 miles again felt so good. On my spreadsheet, I am still trying to plan around 18, because that seems a little more reasonable. And if there's days where I can't quite make that, yeah, at least it's ballpark and reasonable considering length of the day. Stuff like this won't slow me down unless it gets really cold, things warm up. Actually, I would be in bigger trouble if it warmed up, because then my layers would start getting soaked, and being in that, 30s, 40s, low 50s range with wind, with wet gear, is way worse than lovely flurries like this. I have been debating if I need to pull the trigger on getting an air mattress or some additional layer in addition to my foam. I don't like air mattresses because they have a bad tendency to get holes at some point. Yes, I know there are people who have had the same one for years, but it depends where you camp. And when you're camping on rougher, varied terrain on something like this, where you don't have these prepared dirt campsite tent pads, they can get holes a lot quicker. And ever since the PCT, where I popped 3 of them in the first month, I just haven't trusted them worth a damn. But the cold will start coming up through the orange pad at some point. I think that was kind of why I was having a harder time sleeping up at those 9K camps a couple of days ago. This spring, I just got some Reflectrix, which we use for all the windows in the van. It's really cool material. And I carried that, and that was enough to give me more insulation. Unfortunately, as always, there is a pretty big delay in getting anything out here. The box Jen's gonna send, to Silver City, she basically has to send right away in order for it to be getting there. We don't want another near miss like that sad stove situation in Grants, where it arrived right after I went by. That should be the last mail drop though. So Lordsburg is the only other town after that. That's the one that's like 70, 80 miles from the border. I'll just buy, I can get through on whatever I have to. And then probably by the time I get to Silver City, I need to start thinking a little harder about how I'm going to get back from the border, whether I'm going to have to hike back or what. I did message this guy on Facebook, Tim, who I guess is the trail angel that retrieves people late in the year. He is usually down there till sometime in December. I said, oh yeah, I think I'm probably going to finish around the 9th or 10th, hopefully. Which we'll see. That was before the delays out here. And he thought he might still be around at that point. It would be, I think he charges $175 for a pickup, but down a dirt road that can be kind of challenging, high clearance, and requires some maneuvering. That's just kind of price of doing business. If a couple of weeks pass, my biggest issue is costs of the shuttle. That means things are going really, really well. As far as what's up ahead after Winston, aka the last big anticipated challenge, I'm going to check things when I get into Winston. I asked Jen to look into it, just because I don't know how long I'll have at Winston. It could just be as little as 4 or 5 hours while I charge up my batteries. And worst case, I've got Juggy tied to the side of my pack now, so if I have to, I have a carry capacity of 10 liters hard-sided, and I just have to do like yesterday, carrying that jug in one hand. Not my favorite, but better than running out of water if it's going to be 50-mile dry stretches. At least so far, I think this would have been doable without the water caches. Would have been much less pleasant. I would have just had to go from the Gila alt start to Graveyard Well to that pond before where I camped yesterday, and then it would probably be a carry all the way from there to Winston. There is one spring out here, but I think it's Adobe. When I went down to it in spring, it took me like 2 hours to get down that far off trail, and it was little pools. So maybe it's flowing, but that one I don't have much confidence in. Part of me would have liked to go to Graveyard and some other of these side sources, but I just feel like I don't have enough buffer to be screwing around too much. When it's something that's reasonably close, quarter of a mile off trail, I've been checking it and leaving comments just so we finally have some fall comments out here. Plenty in spring, and I feel like if you do this northbound in spring, it's going to feel like long water carries, but it's all relative. After this, things like the Great Basin, where I was stressing about like a 24, 30-mile water carry with just easy dirt roads. that feels like nothing. Or if not nothing, at least significantly easier than this. It's all relative. I don't even know, once I get down past Silver City, if I make it that far, how much of my water bottles I'm gonna get rid of. This has me inherently cautious for water carries. The other X factor when it comes to the section south of Winston is there are areas of rather extreme fire damage down there. There are comments talking about newly cut trail. I saw newly cut trail when I was there in spring, and I heard from the owner of the store in Winston that there were trail crews actively out around that time. There is at least one section that goes into a canyon that's 14 miles, and when the comment was made, the red line didn't match up. So we'll see. I don't know if the number it is faster or longer than what's there. And there's also some bushwhacky canyons described. Granted, those bushwhacky bits are comments left by northbounders. At that point, they're 200 some miles in. You tend to get a little more stoic when you're way in versus when you start. Supply wise, I still have another day and maybe a half on my batteries. I am currently carrying a little under 6 liters of water, which if this lasts most of the day will probably be overkill, but that gives me enough buffer. And food wise, I have one more hot dinner due to that day I didn't cook due to having no water. And I have enough snack food to last me through today, tomorrow, and probably partway through the next day. I just have not been eating as much as I thought. Mostly because it's been, cold, I think. And when there's less water, I don't stop as much, and so I don't eat as much. Things brightened up for a little while, but it just keeps coming. And welcome back to the northern overlap junction of the Grand Enchantment and the CDT. I came up from the left. Grand Enchantment goes off to the right. That's where I went in spring. Unfortunately, this has been a bit nasty. Turned into kind of a wet storm So I'm starting to struggle a bit with thermal issues. Good for now, layered up. I've got my full rain gear on, but if this continues, I'll take whatever miles I have and tent up. It's mostly just fleece getting wet, combo of, sweat, and again, it was turning kind of wet snow down there. I have 15 more miles to Winston and then a difficult hitch, so trying to push it and just assuming I'll get warm there is obviously a bad idea. Ideally, I get at least another 5 miles, but again, we'll see. Seems to be getting chillier out here. Rain pants for the win, at least for now. I really like my rain skirt, but once again, I am very happy that I have my rain pants with me. Much nicer terrain, but I do miss being able to stop for longer than 2 minutes without getting chilled. Almost 5 o'clock. I've come 18 some miles. Trailhead is 2.6. I kind of want to get close to it as possible, though. I'll probably stop within that last mile. The idea will be get into Winston in the morning. The one general store there is 8 to 5. Drink coffee, eat frozen breakfast, and then get the box from the post office, which should be waiting for me in the lobby, despite the fact it's Sunday. Jen was able to call him, and the lady there has a long history of being very helpful for hikers. I need at least 4 or 5 hours to charge batteries and things like that. The big question is, do I leave tomorrow or do I stay in town and leave the following morning? Reason for staying in town would be the water carry, and they have a cabin there. If that's for rent, I could get out of the cold for a night. I'm torn. My feet have been taking a hammering for the last week, especially with the long day yesterday and today. But I want to finish this. I'm somewhere around 260 miles from the border, which is starting to sound close, but there's still this 100-mile butt kicker between Winston and Silver City. Today has gone a lot smoother, other than, weather, wind, temperature, etc. It's been a good trail and ATV tracks like this. I know there's some of that south of Winston, and then it's also a trail, but there's some reroutes and the whole question of water. So, if anything, I assume it's going to be the same or more difficult than reserved to here. Be nice if it went smooth, but when does that happen? The other trick, of course, is this town is a hitch, and it is known as one of the more difficult hitches. When I was here for the Grand Enchantment, I actually came into it from a different side. There's a far more remote ranch road, and I managed to get in and out of there and make it work. This one is a paved road, but I could get picked up in 5 minutes. I could get picked up in 5 hours both ways. Last time it was ranchers and people getting lumber, and there seems to be an awareness of the trail, and that usually helps. So I decided to stop about a mile short of the road. I can hear traffic down there. I don't like trying to hitch at night, even if I could get into town. There's not really much there other than the community center porch once the general store shuts down. So plan will be wake up in the morning, get down double check the water cache, and then try and hitch into town, get food, coffee, and then do my resupply and figure out what's next. Home sweet home. I've really been carrying way too much water today, but I hardly drank because it was so cold with the wind and everything.